In our previous tutorial, we learnt how to calculate the workday end date in JavaScript, given a start date and a number of days that we need to work. What about if we have a range of dates? So you can see on this sample on the right-hand side here. And we know the start date and the end date, but we need to know the number of work days that occurred over this period that don't include things like weekends or public holidays. So you can see on my visual example on the right hand side here, we have 3 examples. One starts on the 10th of September, ends on the 23rd. The next one starts on the 26th, ends on the of October, and ends on the 4th of November. And the last example starts on the 22nd of December and ends on the 16th of January. Now we know the start and end dates. We also know when our public holidays are, as you can see in the orange here, that are also underlined. In one case, one of our public holidays is on a weekend, and we also know, of course, our weekends. So I've already created a runsies function for this. If you want to play along, you can grab the runsies function from the written version of the tutorial in the link in the description below. And our runsies function, let me just move that down a bit for us to there. So our runsies function contains a holidays array for all the holidays that we have in this sample example, then our weekends. Now our weekends are a JavaScript day of the week. So in JavaScript, the week starts in the US format starting on Sunday rather than in Australia and the UK starting on a Monday. And that Sunday is a 0 and then runs all the way through to Saturday, which ends on a number 6. Now, next up, we have a set of test ranges. And here we have an array of objects. And on each property of the array, we have a start date and end date object for each of these 3 sample examples here. Then down here, we are going to call a function called getWorkdays, which we haven't created yet, but we will in a moment together. That will input this test range, the weekends, and the holidays. So this getWorkdays is going to return back an array of valid workdays as dates. So essentially, we're going to have a 2D array returning back to us 3 times with dates that are valid for each time. Then we're going to iterate through our test ranges and map the test ranges, adding on to each object a valid number of days, so the valid days as an array, and then also the count, so the number of valid days, by getting the length of the subarray, which will return back to test ranges, and then we will console log this as a stringified object to make it look pretty. And then we'll use runsies to run it. Let's go ahead and create our workdays function now. So up the top here, we'll say function get workdays. Okay, so what do we need to put in here? First, we need our work period, which is going to be an array of objects. And then we need our weekends array. And then we'll need our holidays array. Much of this function is going to be similar to the previous one we did in the previous tutorial. Don't worry if you haven't followed along, we'll go through along the way, but just maybe a fraction faster than we did in the previous tutorial. Okay, so let's do some JS doc up the top here. So with our JS doc up the top here, let's put in our title. We will call it get an array of work days in a range of dates. Or range between 2 dates, I guess, is okay. So the first parameter is going to be a array of objects. And let's just do that and that. And we'll say work period dot start date and then dot end date there. And they're both going to be strings. Weekend are going to be an array, going to be a string array. Oh no, a number array. Which is this one here. Pink. And then holidays are going to be as a string array. Cool. All right, let's get our days in milliseconds next. Okay, so that's going to be 24 hours times 60 minutes times 60 seconds times 1,000 milliseconds, and that'll get our day in milliseconds. We're going to convert all our work periods into milliseconds, our weekends and our holidays into milliseconds as well to help us iterate through. And then to avoid any daylight saving issues, we are going to create a little internal function, little private function called getUTC or getUTC date. And getUTC date is essentially going to grab a date as a string, convert it to a date, and then grab that date information's full year, month, and date and convert that to UTC format in milliseconds. And we're going to use that a couple of times here. Okay, the next thing we need to do is convert the holidays into UTC format so we can check against them. So it's going to be const holidays UTC. It's equal to holidays dot, and we'll map through this. And for each holiday, we're going to do some stuff to it, aren't we? We're going to use the get UTC on it. Cool. It's safe. Nice. All right, we can check that holidays UTC, I guess, at this stage. Bit of testing, make sure we haven't messed anything up. Hit save. Move our debugger up a bit. 34. Oh, holidays not defined. It's because we've got a bit of ahead of ourselves here with our function. Let's move this up here, hey? That's a bit of a better idea. Now we're inside the getWorkdays function. We'll hit save, F5 again. Oh, console.log. I'm rushing.
Mistakes were made.
Console.log. There we go, up the top here. Don't worry about this because we haven't returned anything yet, so we can't do that bit yet. But importantly, we want to look at these dates, holidays in milliseconds. So that is proof. Cool, bananas. All right, so now we need to iterate over these workday periods. So let's create a constant variable called workdays. That's going to be equal to work period dot map. So we're going to map over these. And as we're mapping over, we're going to return the array of workdays, right? So we need to grab each workday or work period and do some stuff to it. First thing, we need to set a couple of variables for each iteration. So the first one is going to be a start and end date, so const day start, and that's going to be equal to, and here we're going to make use of get UTC again to convert both the start date and end date into UTC format. So day start equals get UTC workday dot start date, and we'll say day end here and workday's end date here. Great. Nice. Now, we do also have some variables that will change. So what we're going to do next is iterate over each day within this range here. And if one of the days is not a holiday or a weekend, we're going to store it somewhere in an array. And then when we get to the end, that array is going to be returned back into this map and become this part of this Workdays two-dimensional array of dates. First thing we also need is to get the days of the week so we can compare the current date against the day of the week, which will allow us to define whether it's a weekend or not. So these will change. So we'll use let here, day of week equal new date. And this is going to be our workday dot start date here. And then we're going to get the day. So that'll be the day of the week. Cool. And this will only be this date on the first iteration. On the next date, it needs to change to the next date, right? Let's also add the current day. So let day, and that's going to be the day start. Now we need somewhere to store our array that we build once we find a workday. So we'll say let valid workday equal an array. Okay, cool. Let's just make sure everything's coming up hunky-dory here. So we'll do another console log and day start. What else we got? Day end. They should be in milliseconds. Then day of week should be the first day of the start, and then the day should also, so this day should match this one this time. So we'll hit F5 to check. Okay, cool. So we've got day start, day end, day of the week. So the first day of the week is 2. So remembering in JavaScript land, weeks start on Sunday on 0, 0, 1, 2. Yep. The next one is 6. So starting here on Saturday, we can see it does start on Saturday. And then the last example starts on a Sunday, which is a 0. Cool. And this matches this, which is fine. And so do the others. Cool. I think we're on the right track. Okay, let's create a while loop now. Okay, so while the day is less than or equal to the day end, we want to check if it's a weekend or a holiday or not. So we could say check, or say if. So here we can say, we can check the weekends array with the JavaScript includes method here and say if it's not included in that array, then it's a workday. So if weekends, so we've got not weekends includes, and we want the day of the week. And if it's not a holiday, UTC here, holidays UTC, let me check. Is it? Holidays UTC, yep. So it's not in the holidays UTC, and we'll say includes again. So if the current day is not included in the holidays UTC array, then it's also a workday. So we will create a variable const called date dt for date, and we'll say new date, and that's going to be equal to the day. And we want to convert that day to the same format that we have here, which is the year, month, and day. And we can do that with the ISO string to ISO string, this one here. Okay, so once we have our date, let's just push that into our valid workday dot push date dt. And we'll come back to this in a moment because this will not display exactly what we're after. Actually, an ISO string, let me just explain. An ISO string is going to produce this year format here with the year, month, and day with dashes. And then we'll have like a Zulu time as well after it, but we only want the first 10 characters. So what we'll do is add a substring to this with 0, starting at 0 and going for 10 characters. And number is 10. Okay, so it's an if statement. And then after we check that one, we'll go day plus equals our day in milliseconds. This one here. We also need to update the day of the week. So that's going to be day of the week, and that's going to equal, and you can't just keep adding 1 to it because it only goes up to 6, and at the end of 6 needs to go back to 0. So if we say if the next day of the week, or if the current day of the week plus 1 is equal to 7, well, that's no bueno, so we need to say 0. Otherwise, we'll do the day of the week plus 1. And then once we've created our valid workday array, we are going to return the valid workdays. All right, cool. And once this has been finished mapping, then we want to return the actual whole workdays to the array. Okay, so let's go down and then just return this function with our workdays. Workdays? Workdays. Okay, so if we haven't done anything silly, we should be good to go. Let's hit F5. Cool. All right, let's scroll up so we can see everything in its glory. Okay, so our first start date, we have starting on the 10th. That's this one up here. And then we've got valid workdays 10, 11, 12, 13. So yeah, 10, 11, 12, 13, but the weekend 14 and 15 are excluded, but 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, which is Monday, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, cool. And then the 23rd is also there. So that's a total count of 10 valid workdays within this date range. All right, our next one is here. So that starts on the 26th, which is a weekend. 27th is a weekend, so they're not registered, but the 28th, 29th, and 30th are registered. And then the 31st is Halloween, as we are all petitioning for Halloween to be a public holiday. And then Friday the 1st is not a holiday, and nor is the 4th. So that's our total of 5, and we end on the 4th there. So the next one is over the Christmas periods from the 22nd of December through to the 16th. And we start on the 22nd, which is a Sunday, so that won't be registered, but the 23rd will be before we leap into the Christmas 2 days, before the 26th and 27th, because our mean bosses make us work for those 2 days before the weekend. And then we've got the 30th to 31st again here, which are real. And then the New Year's Day is a holiday, so that's not on our list. So it goes from the 31st to the 2nd. So 2nd through to the 3rd, these last 2 days of the week here. And then we've got a whole week running from the 6th to the 10th. So 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, cool. And then the following week, we have from the 13th to the 16th. So 13th through to the 16th here, with a total count of 16 days. Success. Okay, so that's how you extract a number of workdays between two date ranges in JavaScript. Again, if you want to work out the end date based on a start date and number of workdays, have a look at my previous tutorial. But if you've enjoyed this tutorial, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, subscribe. Until next time.